CMUEagles.com with Central Methodist head men's basketball coach Jeff Sherman as the Eagles prepare to travel to Culver-Stockton on Thursday for a 7:30 p.m. Central Time tip-off. Coach, this is a team, when you first faced them this year in Puckett Fieldhouse, it literally came down to the wire. Greg Williams' tip-in ultimately put you over the hump. Williams had a career night that night. What do you remember about that first game?
Well, a lot of good and a lot of bad. That was also the game that we lost Eric McDaniel for the season. In fact, we just went back and reviewed that incident, and what a freak accident that was, just coming down and stepping on a player. But no, it was a good game. It's always a good game with Culver-Stockton. Culver-Stockton's got a phenomenal team. They're much like we are. They don't have true post players, so they're very good at spreading teams out. They have a phenomenal spacing with their offense. They really challenge defenses, playing good on-the-ball defense and making sure that you play good help side. And they got good shooters. And so with that, they can be a very scary team. The kind of team that's 15 points down, they can get back up in a heartbeat. The only probably downside of that is they still play the same way even when they're 15 points up. They can lose the lead. So it's a team that's one game behind us. I think if I'm a Culver-Stockton and a Mid-American Nazarene, here they are at like the 5, 6, 7 spots. You have to feel pretty good about everything because you're only a couple games out of being in out of those 2 top spots. So we can find ourselves right now being one game out of a second place, and we're one game out of being a 6th and 7th place. And so that's how tight this conference race is getting to be. And I don't think we've won at Culver the last 3 years. I think it's been about 4 years since we've won at Culver. It's a very tough place to play. Coach Schrader's a very good coach, very well coached. They've been a top 10 team in the country the last 2 years, done extremely well at the national tournament, but it's a new team. But they've got those expectations, so it'll be a challenge for us.
As you just alluded to, Central Methodist hasn't won at Culver-Stockton in the last 2 years. It's been a very difficult place to play, especially for a lot of conference teams. A different cast of characters for them this year, but still is always probably a difficult place to go in and steal a win.
Well, there's no question. And I think you're getting to the last 6 games of the conference season, and every game is important. Your good teams find ways to win it on the road. I think we've been a very good road warrior team. I think most every year we play more games on the road than we do at home. I like where we're at right now. I like where the players are. We've overcome a lot of adversity. The team is getting bigger, stronger, and more importantly, a little tougher. Based on some of that, we're not quite as deep. I think our bench is trimmed down a little bit from the very first part of the season, but we're learning to adjust to that. I like the players' attitudes. Our coaching staff is working extremely hard. The first game you mentioned with Culver, you mentioned Greg Williams. That was kind of his coming out game. Here you go, a 3rd string point guard, and all of a sudden he's pulls down 20 points and 12, 13, 14 rebounds, whatever it was that night. And he's continued on, and where we didn't have Greg really in the mix early in the year, he's been a major contributor to our team. So, through different adversities, you end up coming out ahead in some areas. And I think a few of our players, and I'd like to mention Scott Stegman again. I think we nominated him for Player of the Week this last week. He had a phenomenal week, but he's had a lot of good weeks, and he's been able to now become more of a forefront player for us this last 6 weeks than at the start of the season. So, I think we're getting a lot of good and positive things out of our program. We're excited anytime you can sweep Benedictine, who's a top national rated team and everything, but there's a long ways to go. It's one game at a time. We're on a 4-game winning streak right now, and we're going to play in one of the tougher places in the conference to play.
Culver-Stockton coming off a win over Evangel, who was ranked 23rd at the time, was also leading the conference, so an upset by records, but by style of play, everyone knows that it's capable of happening. Marquez Poole for Culver-Stockton goes off for 25 points, 8 of 14 from the field, 6 of 11 from three-point range. Does that surprise you that Culver-Stockton was able to have so much success against Evangel, and just kind of talk about some of the things that Poole does well from a skill set?
Well, it's probably not as much as a Poole. You know, he's their third leading scorer for the year. So, you know, they have 4 players that are averaging double figures. Graham actually leads them in scoring at about 15, 16 a game. But, you know, Culver should have beaten them at Evangel. That was an overtime loss at Evangel. And they didn't make a few free throws down the stretch. They lost a big lead. So, at least from a matchup standpoint, they match up very well with Evangel. I think we do, and we have probably the best matchup with Culver than anybody because we're a small team. They don't have any true post players, so it's a natural matchup for us. The only difference is we don't necessarily play the same styles. We do both spread the offense. We like to press. I don't think this will be a team that we'd be able to have a lot of success pressing because they do a much better job at running the ball than we do. And big key for us is transition defense. We're going to have to keep them off the boards. And we're going to have to execute the personnel scouting reports. And, you know, when our team does that, we're pretty good. You know, I think that comes down to everything that comes from the game of basketball. You do your job, you do the things that the team needs everyone to do, you get to be pretty good. I think at times we can be a very average team, but when our guys really lay it on the line and they work hard, we could be a very good ball team, and they're starting to buy into a lot of that. And when you're so close right now, when you're right there in the hunt of, you know, third, second, first place, you know, the whole thing, every possession, every little detail gets magnified, and this is going to be a game that's going to come down to executing the game plan, being able to follow the scouting report, and also being able to do each and everyone's job. But tough place to play, road game. Heart of America, 6 games left in the conference season, and we have 7, 8 teams in our conference legitimately pursuing to get a home court for the playoffs. I don't think that's ever happened, and maybe after this week that gets trimmed down to 4 and 5. If that's the case, we want to make sure we're among that top group, and then we go down to the final 4 games. But it's going to be a huge week, and it starts with Culver.